Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh. And on the show today, Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's Secretary of War, is in the eye of a storm. The double-tap strike on what the Trump administration claims was a narco boat has raised many questions about the legality of the strikes. And now, the lawmakers have threatened to strip 25% of Pete Hegseth's travel budget. And in France, the Prime Minister is facing a high-stakes vote in the Parliament. The vote on social security budget could be a bit of a make or a break deal for Sébastien Lecornu. But let's of course start with this big story where the double-tap strike on the Venezuelan boat by the United States has triggered a political storm in the United States. There are demands for the release of the full footage of the airstrikes that continue to grow. But there also seems to be a bit of a confusion in the White House on who should release the footage. Will it be the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, Donald Trump, or will it be the American Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth? Before we tell you the full story, listen to these two conflicting statements of President Trump.
You released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. You know, we stopped every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
And if you look at our
you.
numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%.
Are you committing to releasing the full video?
Didn't I just tell you that?
You said that it was
You're
up
the
to
most
Secretary Hegseth.
obnoxious reporter in the whole place. Let me just tell you, you are an obnoxious, actually a terrible reporter, and it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
Now, the issue is also echoing at the Capitol Hill. So far, only some selected lawmakers from both sides have seen the footage. The Congress has now snugged in the demand of footage release in the defense bill. And the lawmakers have threatened to strip 25% of Pete Hegseth's travel budget, the money that they plan to release only if full videos of the strike are provided. Now, Pete Hegseth has denied the release of full footage, but he has said that the Pentagon is reviewing it and will decide what part is fit to be released publicly.
We are reviewing it right now.
Is that a yes or no?
That is, the most important thing to me are the ongoing operations in the Caribbean with our folks that use bespoke capabilities, techniques, procedures in the process. I'm way more interested in protecting that than anything else. So we're reviewing the process and we'll see.
The strike in question took place on the 2nd of September when the U.S. forces carried out a follow-up strike on an alleged drug boat, killing the 2 survivors. Now, experts say that the second strike was illegal, as under the U.S.'s Law of War manual, orders of leaving no survivors are not allowed. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, bring us up to speed with this entire controversy in the United States about releasing the footage of that double-tap strike. Why has it become so controversial, and why has the Trump administration now, it appears, developed cold feet on releasing that footage?
So that footage is about a second strike on a Venezuelan alleged drug boat. And what Congress is saying is very interesting because lawmakers were able to see part of the footage related to that strike, where there were 2 survivors left after the initial strike, and then the double tap, as it's called in military terms, which the Democrats who saw the footage say that it showed 2 people in distress in international waters, while the Republicans who saw it saw individuals that were still in touch with the alleged narco terrorists back home, and that they had drugs on them and they would have been a threat to American national security. What's concerning right now is how Congress is going to use its constitutional powers, perhaps, tucking this provision in the National Defense Authorization Act for this year to try to limit the budget for Hegseth's traveling unless and until the Pentagon releases this to the public because there are lawmakers, and this is bipartisan. They believe that this footage should be made public for the people to see here in the United States, and whether or not it amounts to ultimately war crimes. It could go as far as that. So the Trump administration is in a sticky situation. Congress seems to have leverage regarding this because it's also tying the release of this footage to a long overdue Pentagon report about other issues. For example, the lessons learned from the Ukraine war and whatnot. So while it's becoming more common, it is rare that the issue of constitutionality really also executive power of Congress is also tied to military actions of the Pentagon.
Interesting. We'll have to see as to how this unfolds. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with those updates then. All right, let's now shift our attention to the other big story that we are tracking on race to power. The American President Donald Trump has warned that Europe is now heading in some very bad directions. Now, these comments are the latest in his criticism for his allies across the Atlantic, and they've come just days after his new security strategy had slammed the European continent on the question of mass migration. Now, Trump launched the latest broadside after he was asked about the $140 million fine that was imposed on Elon Musk's social media network X by the European Union tech regulators. Now, Trump hit out at the move, calling it nasty.
Oh, that's a nasty one. I don't know. Elon has not called me to ask for help on that one. But no, it's a tough thing. I don't think it's right. No, I don't think it's right. I don't see, how they can do that. No. I'll speak about it later. I'm going to get a full report on it. Look, Europe has to be very careful. They're doing a lot of things. We want to keep Europe Europe. Europe is going in some bad directions. It's very bad for the people. We don't want Europe to change so much. You're going in some very bad directions. That was a big thing. Mm-hmm.
The comments follow criticism in the new U.S. national security strategy of Europe. The strategy released last week criticizes Europe as being over-regulated and facing civilizational erasure due to migration and other issues. Interestingly, the strategy has also hinted at U.S. intervention in European politics, saying that Trump's administration will be cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. The Chancellor Friedrich Merz has strongly hit out at Washington, saying that new American doctrine is simply unacceptable.
Some of it is understandable, some of it is comprehensible, some of it is unacceptable to us from a European perspective. I see no need for the Americans to want to save democracy in Europe now. If it needed to be saved, we would manage that on our own.
Now, Trump and the Europeans are also increasingly at odds over U.S. plans to end the war in Ukraine, with fears in Europe that Washington aims to force Kiev into surrendering land to Russia. On the other hand, the Kremlin has welcomed the changes to Trump's strategy, saying that it is largely consistent with Russia's vision. The updated strategy does not mention Russia as a direct threat. Now, the fine against X had already invited some pretty strong reactions from the Trump administration officials, and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the fine was an attack on all American tech companies, while Vice President J.D. Vance has accused the EU of trying to censor Americans online. And the FCC chair Brendan Carr has said that Brussels is targeting X simply because it is a successful US platform. Now, Elon Musk has gone further, calling the European Union a bureaucratic monster, urging the bloc to be abolished and insisting that he is not kidding. Now, the EU has dismissed his statements as completely crazy. And France is yet again on a crucial juncture. The Prime Minister is facing a high-stakes vote in the Parliament. The vote on social security budget could be a make-or-break deal for Sébastien Lecornu. The French Parliament is fractured, and getting a majority of the lawmakers to back any proposal remains an uphill task for the government. Forging alliances and tough negotiations is the only way to try and get the legislation through. At this time also, it is expected to be a close call for Lecornu. Now, the French Prime Minister has managed to win the support of the socialists by suspending Macron's landmark. He's pushed away the centrists and the conservative allies. Now, this equation leaves the fate of the bill uncertain. Now, the far right and also the hard left side of the political spectrum are in a bit of a battle mode. They are happy with Le Cornu's concessions to win the socialist support. And Marie Le Pen's national rally has said that it will vote against the bill. And the party's 123 lawmakers are expected to turn up in the National Assembly. Now, earlier in the day, Marie Le Pen repeated the demands for fresh polls. She said that it is impossible to move forward without a clear majority. And those who oppose fresh elections are destabilizing the country. The fate of the full budget, of course, depends on the outcome of today's vote. Unlike the US's failure to pass the budget proposal will not push France into a shutdown, but it will roll over the previous year's budget. And if this bill fails to pass, it will jeopardize France's goal to keep the budget deficit below 5%. Now, Sébastien Lecornu has already refused to use special constitutional provisions to get the budget through without a vote, but the threat of no confidence motion still looms, and the far right and the hard left can place a bid to bring Lecornu down, forcing France into deeper political turmoil. All right, now to give us some more updates on this, we're joined in this broadcast by Ross Cullen, who's joining us live from Paris. Ross, this is another high-stakes vote that Sébastien Lecornu needs to just jump, or give us a sense of why this is such a crucial vote for Sébastien Lecornu and for France.
Well, the vote is taking place a little bit later on this afternoon inside the National Assembly, France's lower house of parliament. You can see behind me here in the centre of the French capital, and the Prime Minister himself says it might come down to just 2 or 3 votes. That's how tight it is. No one party or faction in Parliament is anywhere near anything like a majority, and so there's always having to be compromises made, and we know that the socialists from the opposition are going to vote with the government, but the government's own allies, the Horizons Party, have said they will abstain, and so you don't have the normal makeup of people voting for this that you might. There are going to be other opposition MPs that will vote in favour of it, other government MPs that will vote against the social security budget, and so it is very hard for the Prime Minister to try to work out if it's likely that this will pass or not. The French budget is being debated in multiple stages. This is the biggest stage so far for social security for 2026. If this vote fails this afternoon, it's hard to see how the rest of the budget approval process for next year can continue. It's a race against time because they do need this signed off, obviously, before we get to 2026, which is in just 3 weeks' time. There is the possibility of using special decree powers to keep spending and saving plans rolling over into next year. So there's no chance of a US-style shutdown here in France, but it would be really impossible for the Prime Minister to avoid calls for his resignation this afternoon if the vote fails. He has previously resigned in October, but before he was reinstated by the President, he could well face further calls for his resignation later today.
Some very interesting developments there. Thank you very much indeed, Ross Cullen, for joining us from Paris and getting us those updates there. All right, let's now shift our attention to the United Kingdom, where Prime Minister Keir Starmer has made his debut on TikTok, the Chinese social media platform that is banned on the UK government devices due to spying-related security reasons. Now, the move by the British Prime Minister is being seen as a bid to reach out to young voters. In his very first video on TikTok, Keir Starmer has urged the viewers to follow him and has turned on the Downing Street Christmas lights with his wife. The British Prime Minister has also promised to keep the timeline buzzing with what he is doing and why he's doing it. Now, Keir Starmer's rival and also the rising star of the United Kingdom's right wing, Nigel Farage, is also on the platform. The Reform UK leader already has about 1.4 million followers on the platform. And Keir Starmer's move to join TikTok comes at a time when his popularity is plunging, but the most dissatisfied demographic remains the youngsters. And according to the poll conducted by YouGov, 56% of the youngsters say that they are not satisfied with Keir Starmer's performance, and only about 17% say that they are satisfied with him. The voting intention is also shifting away from Keir Starmer's party, and according to a separate survey that was conducted by Find Out Now, 31% of the men aged from 16 to 25 will support Nigel Farage's party if elections are to be held today. Now, as of June 2025, TikTok had about 30 million active users in the United Kingdom, and the platform also tops the time that is spent statistically in the country. Average UK users spend nearly about 49 hours on the platform on a monthly basis, making it a popular platform for the political parties to reach out to younger voters. The Nepal's Election Commission has approved 114 political parties, including many new ones, to contest the upcoming 2026 general elections. Now, these are in fact the first polls that are being held in the Himalayan nation since the Gen Z-led mass uprising ousted the KP Sharma Oli government in the month of September earlier this year. And according to an election commission spokesperson, Nepal polls are on track to be held on the 5th of March next year, and the protest led by the country's youth led to the resignation of KP Sharma Oli government, the dissolution of the parliament, and also the appointment of Nepal's first woman Prime Minister Sushila Karki. And about 19 million eligible voters have registered their names so far, and the Nepalese Election Commission spokesperson said that adding that officials are determined to ensure a free and an impartial and a peaceful environment. Almost about one-fifth of the 114 parties approved to contest for the elections are new and include several registered by young activists who led anti-corruption protests that shook the country in September. Now, the mass uprising was triggered by a brief ban on social media but fueled by wider anger at the economic hardship and corruption in the country. Unrest spread across Nepal, with the parliament and the government offices being set ablaze, resulting in the government's collapse, and over 70 people ended up losing their lives and thousands more were injured. Now, with the rules of power being completely changed in Nepal following the Gen Z protests, all eyes are now on March 2026. The elections hold importance to see if the uncertainty around Nepal's political future can change, as deep public distrust of the established parties still remains a major challenge to holding credible elections in the country. Now, Tariq Rahman, the chairman of Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the son of the country's former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, has urged the party leaders and activists to prioritize the party or individual candidates ahead of the general elections, which are set to take place in February next year. The BNP chairman has warned that a serious setback could follow if unity is not maintained. With Bangladesh's political landscape undergoing a rapid transformation, Tariq has called upon the Chhatra Dal leaders as well as the activists to reach out to people in their areas, explain the party's plans, gather support and to mobilize voters. Speaking virtually at the BNP's plan to build the country program, Tariq said that several political parties are promising honest governance and justice, which he described as vague terms that BNP does not use, urging the activists and party leaders to treat the candidates as the main factor, but to prioritize the party and the sheaf of party symbol. Meanwhile, the Election Commission of Bangladesh is likely to declare the national election scheduled tomorrow or on the 11th of December. And reports now suggest that the Election Commission has already requested the Bangladesh Television and Bangladesh Bitar to record the speech of the Chief Election Commissioner, with instructions given to remain ready to also broadcast the speech immediately. Now, prior to the announcement, the CEC, along with other commissioners, will be meeting with President Mohammad Shahabuddin and will inform him about the overall preparations for the polls that are slated for next year in Bangladesh. Now, in the Philippines, state auditors have uncovered what they call a stunning case of mismanagement inside the state-run social security system. A commission on audit report has revealed that in 2024, the social security system had spent roughly about $225,000 on more than 143,000 rolls of tissue paper, far more than what the agency can even store or reasonably use. More than 116,000 rolls were left sitting in the supplier's warehouse, held only by a verbal agreement with no proper paperwork in place. Now, the auditors say that the wasteful spending alone could have covered 2 months of pension payments for nearly 2,000 retirees or funeral benefits for more than 600 members. But the tissue oversupply is just one part of the corruption problem. The Commission on Audit also found nearly $425,000 in pension overpayments made to individuals who had already died. Clear signs of gaps in monitoring and verification that allowed ghost beneficiaries to drain public funds. At the same time, there have been underpayments, almost $48,000 short, across nearly 300 funeral claims caused by errors in computing contributions that have left the surviving families with less than what they are due. Now, these findings add to a growing list of 2024 audit concerns in government agencies. From the Office of the Vice President to the Department of Public Works and Highways, the SSS, created under the Social Security Act of 1954 and strengthened by later reform, is now under pressure to explain how such lapses happen and what will be done to protect the pension fund. Now, this expose has come at a pretty critical time. The Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is facing his lowest approval ratings since taking office in 2022. And now at just 21% in November, down 14 points from August. The observers warned the slide could signal that his attempt to rein in this sprawling corruption scandal could be backfiring. All right, let's now take a quick look at some of the other stories from around the world that are making headlines in the world of politics. The New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has stabbed Muson Linen, a 49-year-old Bronx rapper and former inmate who served 7 years for armed robbery, to advise him on criminal justice. Convicted of 2 felony heists in the late 90s, Linen has long denied involvement and has since rebranded himself as a community activist. Post-appointment, he'll sit on Mamdani's transition team's criminal legal system committee. The Benin's military is hunting fugitive soldiers after a failed coup attempt that briefly threw the country into crisis, and all hostages, including senior officers, were freed, and by Monday the economic capital, Cotonou, had returned to calm. The search continues as the West African nations mobilize to offer military support, and the coup attempt follows a spate of military takeovers in the region, especially in Benin's northern neighbors Niger and Burkina Faso. The former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez has said that Donald Trump has changed his life after granting him a pardon from a 45-year-old drug trafficking sentence. Hernandez also alleges that he was targeted in a radical left conspiracy, claiming officials from the Biden administration and members of the so-called deep state were involved. The far-right leader Jose Antonio Cast is poised to win Chile's presidency as he heads into the 14th of December runoff against the leftist candidate Janet Jara in a race dominated by public anxiety over rising crime and irregular migration. The Cast, leading in the polls, has pledged to expel hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. This is Mohammed Saleh signing off. Thanks for watching.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme